Welcome to the Kingdom Doers podcast, the show where faith meets business, leadership, and coaching. We bring you inspiring conversations with business leaders, coaches, and ministry leaders who are making a difference in the marketplace and in ministry. Here we explore what it means to lead with purpose, build thriving businesses, serve faithfully, and navigate the intersection of faith and success. I'm your host, high performance mindset coach, Melissa Taylor. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Kingdom Doers podcast. And today I have Maude Roux from atotalapproach.com. Thank you, Maude, so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really great. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Oh, great. Well, Maude, tell me a little bit about what is a total approach? What do you do and how did you get to where you are?
No, we don't have so much time.
I'm sure. I know, right? Every time I ask that question, it's like, how much time do you have?
So
What's the nutshell version?
I'll give you the nutshell version. So
Okay.
I'm an occupational therapist by trade, and I lived and trained in South Africa, got married there, and then we moved over to the US. Long story short, I opened a pediatric private practice, A Total Approach, in 2001.
Wow.
Thinking that I'm gonna serve kids like at school, at home, and at the practice, and I'm gonna do this full service, right? And that's why I called it A Total Approach.
All
Wow,
right.
I should have been more careful. It's
Uh-oh.
become a lot more than that.
Oh, wow.
So now a total approach is we're looking at the whole brain, and we're
Oh,
looking at
wow.
all the different concepts. What is the emotional side of the child, the social side of the child? What's the
Mm,
physical sensory side of the child? How do they become who they are? How do they, are fully immersed in their occupations of a school
mm,
student, a peer in the social life,
wow.
and recreational sports. So
Hmm,
there's so much that's involved, and I think
wow.
w- we basically want to be able to look at the child in a very holistic way.
Mm,
Not only the child, also the family.
yeah.
So the kids who come to me obviously have some learning needs. They
Mm,
have developmental needs, they have learning needs, they may have diagnoses
mm,
such as dyslexia, reading, writing disorders, or autism, or um, the ADHD. There are
mm,
so many different diagnostic categories out there. And in
wow.
the last 10 years, I've also been specializing in
Mm,
trauma work. And that's been quite a journey. And
mm,
every one of these paths have taken me on a journey of trying to understand how how things overlap, but
mm,
also how do I support the family to understand their child?
mm,
How do I help them to make sense of what's happening? Is that really a bad behavior, or
mm,
is that a case of, Mom, if I could, I would,
mm,
but I can't? And
mm,
because I don't know what I'm fighting, I'm just using what I have, right? And how
mhm.
do you delineate that for the parent? And so many times to restore the joy in the family's home,
Wow.
restore the relational feel.
Mm.
It's just been quite an amazing journey. Hard work.
Yes, I'm sure. As most big things that we go after are, they're amazing, but they are often a lot of hard work, right? When we're doing
Absolutely.
big dreams. And what you're doing is really amazing. And I appreciate your work and that you're out there helping, like you said, helping families to bring the joy back. Because when, we are struggling to communicate with those when we don't understand their needs, especially our kids. And this can grow into, as you know, adulthood, and then you have relational issues and things. So it's like you're almost in a sense nipping it in the bud, right? And not to say you're taking away whatever struggles that they're going through, but you're helping give them tools to manage it. Is that right?
That's right. And so there's two arms to it.
Mm,
And the one, well, this may be probably three arms.
mm,
If you give me more time, I'll probably find more. But major arms. The one arm is looking at how can we remediate the brain. The brain is neuroplastic.
mm-hmm.
And so we are plastic till the day we pass away. So you can always change the brain. So we've
Yeah.
developed brain plasticity programs that will help to actually get it out of the way.
Wow.
But we don't talk about a cure or anything because I don't think I've ever cured anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you do regain function.
Mm,
And I think that's what we want. And function may not be looking the same for you as it looks for somebody else. But
mhm,
overall, long enough in the trade to have made many families quite happy with
mm,
getting that. But then the other arm is accommodations. That
mhm,
if the remediation cannot really happen in the brain, if there's for some reason an injury that we
mm,
cannot really do much about, then we need to work around it and find those places to still restore some health and well-being to the
mm.
client and to the family. And then
Wow.
the third arm is also psychoeducation.
Mm,
Is that, what is it really that I'm looking at? And if I can shift my lens to look at the child in more of a strength-based model and see what is the child bringing to the table,
mm,
and then what is it that I can use and to feel in control as a parent, because many parents feel like they're unable to parent a child
mm.
who has needs that they cannot fathom.
Wow.
And in today's industry too,
Mhm,
there are so many professionals out there that are not really talking to each other. So
mhm,
they send the child here for speech therapy, there for
mhm,
education, there for counseling, and there for whatever else is going
mm.
on. And the child still must integrate all of those frames.
Wow.
And so is to figure out how can we package it together so
Mhm,
that the whole child can be understood and held and contained in a way that will decrease anxiety, which
mm,
inevitably will increase function.
mm.
So that's kind of like a very big nutshell there of a whole number of different things that has to be put in place.
Wow. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Especially because when you think about all these different modalities when they're getting treatment for, it's like yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You have to work as a team. It's more of a team effort, right? With all of these different practitioners and doctors.
That's right. It takes a village. I always
Hmm.
say to my families, if you find one person that says they can do it all, you
Hmm.
run. You
Uh,
very far away.
yeah.
Just not possible. So
Yes.
just build a team. Build a team around
Mm.
your child and things can happen.
That's great. That's beautiful. And that's a lovely way to look at it as well, of thinking, okay, I'm even as a parent, I'm just part of this team. And there's the whole village around, which I'm sure helps not just the child feel supported, but the parents feel very supported as well.
Absolutely.
Mm,
And the pleasure of seeing the child grow and seeing the
yeah.
child come into you, and they may be impulsive or they may be timid and shy or they may
Mhm,
be just anxious about who's these new people? What are they going to expect me to do? Are they
mm,
going to take more of me than I can actually give? Right? And
mm,
you have all of these feelings coming in, and then you see them settle,
mm,
see them just kind of go. And then you see these ups and downs again,
mhm, mhm.
and then you see, okay, here we go on a higher level.
Wow.
Then you get the ups and downs of that level, and then you go, whoop, you're going to the next level. And
Mm,
when you see them kind of grow and take to life, you realize that the way we were created
mhm,
is the way that we were meant to be. You know,
mm,
that the fact is we are born to connect with each other. We are
yeah.
born to want to grow. We don't tell a typical baby out there, it's time to prop up your head, it's time
Yeah.
to roll over, or it's time for you to sit up. They
Mhm.
somehow just start doing it.
They just know how to do it. Yes.
Right. And then you catch them and you're like, oh, he's sitting up, right? And you're
Yeah.
so excited about that. But
Mhm.
so this is what you want to do. The child who has learning needs,
Mhm.
whatever shape and form it may be, is always turning away from the very opportunities they need to
Mhm.
actually learn and grow.
Wow.
Oftentimes, the big piece is turning them around so that they will take to life and they will use that natural creative ability in their brain to want to grow up and learn and not
Mm.
want to avoid things that they actually do need.
Wow. So you're saying that that these children with these needs will naturally avoid, they'll naturally turn away from.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
You know exactly what you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Kids know that very, very well. And
Hmm.
if you've been given a body that you don't really understand is different from somebody else. So
Hmm.
you're sitting in the classroom and you're looking at your peer and you're like, look how he reads.
Mhm.
Goodness, I can't read like that. Look how
Mhm.
this one's writing. Look how the teacher's always calling on me to sit still, always
Mhm.
telling me to sit still, right? So I'm that person, but I don't
Mm.
have another body to compare it with. So I don't have any idea that their experience is different.
Mm.
When we start to demystify that for the child and we start to help them to see that their brain is unique in a very different way, and
Yeah.
this is what they're really good at,
Mm.
right? And so these are, yes, these are vulnerabilities, but you know what? Once we have that strength, we can push up this vulnerability, and we
Mm.
talk to them to demystify that for them and to help them to see the potential that they have. And then
Mm.
that safety, security, and trust starts to happen.
Yeah.
What's very, very difficult is when children were traumatized. When there
Mhm.
was a trauma in the family, or there was a disruption at birth, and kids who are adopted,
Mm.
things can go very, very well. It doesn't have to be a problem. Adoptions are a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't always align well, And then there's
Mm.
all these mantras of, I've been let down, I've been let go by my biological mother. I'm sitting with this feeling that I'm unworthy to be loved. And you have all of that range of things that's going on.
Mm.
And the kid so desperately needs to understand that anyone, including you, are
Mm.
worthy of being loved.
Wow.
And oftentimes that is just the therapy. And
Mm.
if you think about it, if you think about what did Jesus say?
Mhm.
He said, Suffer not ye little children, but come unto me.
Oh.
I'm always taken by those words. I
Uh,
can never ever emulate the greatest being of this
yeah.
world, right?
Mhm.
But I can strive. I can strive to say, let me create a safe place.
Mm.
Children can feel safe, secure, and be willing to take those steps of learning that they need for themselves.
Mm.
And not be so protective about and defensive about what they think they need to protect.
Yes. Mm. Wow. I really like that perspective a lot. And that verse is so beautiful in connecting it with your work
Yeah.
because what you're basically essentially saying is that these children and families don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
Yes, it's different. You have to navigate in different ways, but it doesn't have to be so hard. And I was just reading yesterday a research study on people who have addictions. They are often tied to ADHD or
Mm.
attachment disorders. And when you think about what that is, really it's escapism, right? Where as adults, sometimes if we didn't learn how to cope as children and we had traumas and all the things that you're mentioning too, no wonder, that they turn into drug addicts and things. So what you're doing right now is just you're capturing them at an age where it's preventing all of those all the future suffering by helping them with that suffering now. Do you agree with that?
I hope so.
Mm,
I true no, I do believe so. I do
mm,
believe we're doing a lot of prevention for one day. I always say to my families when they exit my program, I say to them at the discharge, well, we've got one more thing left to do. And they're like, I thought we're leaving I thought we're done. I'm like, yeah, but there's one more thing left. When your child graduates,
mm.
they get married, I get a card.
Oh.
Because I want to know. I want to know, where did that work end? Or not
Mm,
end, but where did it go? Um,
yeah,
to get to the place where you can have a relationship, where you can get married, where you can get your degree, when you can, I mean, then you have choices in life. You have options. You have
yeah.
place to belong. And
Mm,
that's such a big thing. It's
mm,
a place of belonging, I'm finding, is such a big key in today's world.
yes.
And kids feel ostracized, they feel bullied, they feel decentralized, they
Mm,
feel like they're fragmented, they
mhm,
feel like they want to fit, but where do they fit?
mm,
Everything has to be in a certain status quo, and I have to be what my peers are wanting me to be. I need to be what my parents want me to be. But who
mm,
am I amidst all of those expectations? And then you're looking at, so many examples that can actually be not such a good place to be.
mm,
And you think about I need to figure out where do I belong. And then
Mm,
when that belonging cannot be met, then it feels to the child like they're forever floating
mm,
around others. And
hmm.
that feels incredibly insecure.
Yeah. Mm. Wow. So when somebody is suspecting that their child may have certain needs that are along the issues that you're mentioning too with the and I'm looking at your site working with a sensory processing disorder, autism, ADHD, reading and writing disorders, attachment disorders, brain injuries, um, trauma and all the things that you're working with. If someone is suspecting that, and I think maybe somebody might have a tendency to say there's something wrong with my child,
Mm.
right? There's something wrong and I need to fix it. And instead of looking at, at it being wrong, it's just they have different needs. How do you advise a parent who may be going through that first initial phase of, I don't know what to do or where to start, or how do I even know that my child is experiencing one of these issues? What would you say to them?
The answer might be different in different states, because
Mm,
different professionals and different laws and
okay.
different, they are common denominators.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to understand if your child's development is not meeting the regular milestones and you're not figuring, the child's just not doing what your other kids were doing,
Mm,
and you're seeing there's something different, then I probably would say an occupational therapist with sensory experience is
mm,
probably a good one to give you a profile of your child.
mm,
And even though we're mentioning all these diagnoses, I'm
mm,
not a diagnostician. I don't
mm,
diagnose.
mm-hmm,
I really prefer to work at the individual profile and to see, because there's strengths and vulnerabilities that's different even if you have a specific diagnosis. There's no catch-all really category.
mm,
If they want a diagnosis, they will go to a neuropsychologist,
mm,
um, who is more going to be doing testing like the whisk for intelligence and things like that, and
mm,
add a battery of things that they can look at if to diagnose the child.
mm-hmm,
The diagnosing of children is really a conundrum. And I'm very happy to see that there are groups of professionals now that are talking about we need to do away with all of this categorizing
mm,
of people in general.
mm,
We need to do away with the fact that it's a labeling piece that is probably more discriminatory sometimes than it is actually helpful.
mm,
Now, if you use it in a helpful way, it can be very, very helpful.
yeah.
With that, I mean that you need to be really considering what is the differential diagnosis. That
Mm,
yes, maybe on this axis it could be this, but maybe on a different axis this could be the thing that's compounding that. And
mm,
many, many diagnosticians are absolutely great at what they do.
mhm,
Then when you get the reports, they're not adding the developmental continuum that maybe that this diagnosis is being extrapolated by having a huge developmental lag delay that is
mm,
not being addressed. And once you address that, sometimes the diagnosis goes away. So
uh-huh,
was there a diagnosis to begin with? Right.
mm.
So I think that, I'm opening a whole can of worms here with you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people who will fight me against this
Mm,
piece, but I'm
mm,
saying this with an open heart and an open mind that I think as professionals, we do need to come to the drawing board and really look at the whole picture before putting somebody in a category that's going to trail them for life and
mhm,
it's going to make a certain expectation happen through that category.
yes.
Found that there's so much richness in the individual profile in any of these categories.
Mm,
And for me, it is let's find that spirit within,
mm,
that person there that's fighting for existence, that's fighting to find themselves
yeah.
and to get to a center of saying, hey, wait a minute, this is me, okay?
Right.
Just hang on there. Just, look at me. You know,
Yeah.
I want that piece to come out. I want that piece to say, I'm alive here, okay? Got me,
Hmm.
got me. See me,
Yes.
not diagnosis. So
Yeah.
this is what I think is so important. And even though at the base of my work, I'm working to get the child into his nervous system in a good, healthy way so he can learn alongside his peers and be social alongside his peers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working that we are maybe not needing a diagnosis, right?
Mm. Yeah.
I do also, on the other side, say each one of us have got strengths and vulnerabilities.
Mm.
So I still don't know my left from my right, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just not very good with directions.
Uh-huh.
But I'm functional, you know.
Yes. Mm.
That's what you want. You want to say, hey, I'm going to celebrate the part of me that I have. And the other part, well, maybe I can delegate that, you know.
Yes.
That's what all good CEOs do. They hire an office manager that can really organize so
Yeah.
they can still do the creative work, right? So
Yeah.
doing that kind of piece, but having the option
Mm.
to choose. Many adults, I actually do a number of adults too.
Mm.
Internet is very powerful now, and people are finding you. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of that they never were addressed with their developmental sensory needs when they were younger.
Mm.
What they will say now to me, and I learn because they're more verbal, they can more tell me what I'm
Mm-hmm.
sometimes assuming in children.
Yeah.
And I will say, I chose my vocation based on my profile and not on my ability.
Hmm.
I chose not to go to college
Mm.
because of the fact, not because I didn't have the IQ, but because I couldn't have the organizational skill, because I couldn't have the social skill, because I couldn't work in a group, because I
Mm.
couldn't handle all the noise and the sounds. And, you know, I chose not to because something in my system held me back. So they
Mm.
don't come to a full fruition. And now they're 40 years old, 35 years old, and they're saying, well, maybe we can do something now. And of course we can because our brain is plastic.
Yeah.
But it's you get that, and this is when you come back to what you're saying.
Mm.
Get them when they're young,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as much as you possibly can. You cannot save it all, but
Yeah.
we can help a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's great. And I like that you mentioned about uh, even your weakness of I don't know right from left and my directions are still off, but I'm okay. I can still function. And I think that's a key mentality to have with, not just thinking about these developmental diagnoses, but just also thinking just as a human, just in general, that we all have our imperfections, right? And we just learn to navigate life around those things. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not very great at math. Could I develop more mathematical skills? Probably yes. However, I have a calculator now. Do I need to? Probably not. But it'd be good. But it's okay. We learned how to navigate.
That's, that's
And
right.
it's just about having a strategy. And that's, I think thinking about these things, it's like we can say, oh, well, it's just a different way of being, let's look at the strengths and then using those strengths to navigate life in a better way, relationships and just, just in general, our circumstances. So I think that's a very empowering way to look at anything that we're struggling with, really. And not to avoid it, but to say, okay, we can work through that. And
That's right.
that neuroplasticity aspect, I love neuroplasticity. It's like, it's so fascinating to me and amazing. It gives us so much hope that
That's right.
we don't have to be stuck in our ways, and can you just briefly just and I know it's such a big topic, but just briefly for those who don't know what neuroplasticity is, what it is and why that could be so beneficial, how we can use that to our benefit in our change work?
Yeah. So there's of course there's a whole big
Yes.
brain complexity in this whole piece. But
Yes.
basically, your nervous system is built to work at a certain processing speed.
Hmm.
And that processing speed will help us to put things together and to be able to multitask and be able to think and do and walk and talk and do all of that at the same time.
Mm.
But then when my brain is processing slower in a certain direction and faster in another direction, I will tend to use the faster direction, but I'll always feel like there's a hole on the other end that I'm slower at, which makes me feel much more fatigued.
Mm.
Energy is not so completely there because I have to use a lot more energy to work the parts of that I have that's good.
Mm.
So what neuroplasticity does is that when you stimulate the brain, from the root,
Mhm.
from the original point onwards in the brain. If
Mhm.
you stimulate the brain with the right intensity and frequency of therapy, and the neuroplasticity research talks about high intensity, high frequency therapy, and then
Mhm.
periods of consolidation to confirm it in your body, and then another period of high intensity again. When
Mhm.
you do that, you cause the axons and dendrites in the neuronal ensembles of your brain to actually hook up with each other faster.
Mhm.
Hibbs axiom says, what wires together fires together. That's
Mhm.
really what you want to kind of do. And that's an old axiom, but it's actually neuroplasticity has reconfirmed that.
Yeah.
So you can actually change the brain that there's things that you don't ever have to see as a weakness again.
Mhm.
You can move in that processing speed. And the beautiful thing of this is many families and therapists alike, professionals, will talk about regression.
Mhm.
But the beautiful thing is, unless there's been blunt force injury to the brain, or maybe aging, we won't
Mhm.
talk about that.
Right.
But if there has been a or disease, right?
Yeah.
If none of that has happened, your brain actually cannot regress,
Wow.
right?
It
Because
cannot go back.
once
Mhm.
it goes in a certain speed forward, it goes forward. Now
Mhm.
it can sometimes go into hiding though.
Mhm.
And this you see like when a toddler starts walking, they may have said some words before and they
Mhm.
start to toddle and do
Mhm.
the whole active work of staying on their 2 feet, right?
Yeah.
So cute. But then when they start putting their energy to that, they stop talking for a while.
Mhm.
It's not regression. It's
Mhm.
quite typical. It's just that newer skills go into hiding when faced with stress of but building newer skills.
Mhm.
And then once we get the newer skill under control, the other ones come back, and then we can start to integrate them together again.
Mhm.
And so it's so important to empower parents to know that regression isn't really regression,
Yeah.
unless again those other circumstances have happened, of course. But
Yeah.
that the brain is so beautifully made that,
Mhm.
once you have it, you actually have it. The
Wow.
brain, the brain remembers every single experience you've had in your life.
Mhm.
Bro, thank goodness I don't have to remember every day what it felt like on my mother's womb, okay?
Yes.
I don't have to call it up. There's some
Yes.
things that's best left alone down there in the deep sides of my brain. But the
Right.
brain does remember, and you
Mhm.
can't get triggered by it, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's once we understand the vastness of what that creates in us,
Mhm.
it feels like the sky is the limit. And I'm excited for science to give us more information. I'm
Yeah.
excited for my cases, one after the other, that's
Mhm.
training me that this is true.
Yeah.
This is truly true. And it brings a whole new ray of hope, I think.
Definitely. And it does, remind us of God's, like you said, just how wonderfully made we are and how beautiful our bodies are, that He even gave us ways out of our suffering scientifically, where we can change our brain patterns. Like that's just so amazing. So I love this so much. I can nerd out with you, I think probably all day. Because I love this stuff. But we'll kind of tie it up here. And before I ask you, where we should find you, Maude, you did mention about that Bible verse and how that kind of leads you and guides you through your work. Is there any other way that your faith ties into or plays into the way that you just run your business or show up for other people?
It's it's it sometimes is a battle, you
Mm,
know, you know, and then we were warned in the Bible that there will be spiritual warfare.
yeah.
And so there's definitely been some ups and downs that we can nerd out on that a long time,
Yes.
all those experiences. But I think the guiding principle always has been that as God's children, we need to be efficient.
Mm,
We need to show efficiency. We need to show productivity. We need to show that as God's children, there is something about us that is diligent, that is wanting to take care, wanting to nurture, wanting to create loving relationship, wanting to be absolutely accepting to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
In our facility, we don't, I mean, we have Christians, non-Christians,
Mm-hmm.
um, Muslim oriented. We have anybody working for us. We
Mm-hmm.
don't make that as part of our mantra because I believe that every single person has a value inside of themselves that's intricate.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a Christian, I would like to build that for you. I would like for you to come to my table and I will show you a way that I think is how Jesus respects children and how
Mm-hmm.
he respects people and families and the
Right.
dispensation that he brought. Um, I don't pretend to think that I'm perfect though, and I really am not. I can tell you a whole lot of lists of things that I do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could do better at that. And sometimes I do. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sort of just before I pat myself on the back, I do something wrong again. So it's just, it's not that we strive for perfection,
Yeah.
but we want to be a place of care, a place of warmth, of love, of acceptance, no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that child brings to me today, I'm going to honor.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I'm going to say to him is, listen, who you are is good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
Just bring yourself to me and then come to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I will give you what I've got. And together we will make you shine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we do that, I believe it to be kingdom work. I believe
Yeah.
it to be work that as God has intended it to be. And I
Mm-hmm.
always, even though I also opened my own academy, the Maude
Mm-hmm.
Academy in 2019,
Oh,
because I
wow.
traveled extensively for training others in the methods that I use.
Mm-hmm.
So the mantra has always been that when I say to them, do unto others.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it with a lens of, if I'm going to evaluate, what would I like people to see about me? If I'm going to be assessing a child, if I'm going to be doing therapy with a child, how do I want to be treated? If it
Mm-hmm.
was my child, what would I have liked to have here? Right? There's always this piece of saying, I must never be separated away from the hurt and the pain that somebody else is experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
That can sometimes be very draining.
Yes.
I have to be really careful with my staff too, that we don't go into burnout, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then some of them are not Christian and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the same leaning as I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I just say to them, I'm going to pray for you too anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's being maybe a part of the salt, part of the light that he wants us to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that with utmost humility because
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely know that I don't make that goal every day.
Yes.
But we try.
Mm.
We try.
Yes, it's all about that intention and aiming for, right? We'll never be perfect, but we can always keep aiming for it. And that's a beautiful way to look at this work. And I really appreciate you for everything that you're doing and how you're helping the world and just for your obedience to answer God's call for your life is just amazing. So thank you, Maude, for sharing everything that you do and your faith and how that so beautifully ties in together.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Of course. And so before we go, who should be looking for you and where can they find you?
They can email me directly. I mean,
Okay.
I might as well add another email because I have
Right.
many of them a day. So
Yes.
it's Maude, Maude, at atotalapproach.com.
Okay.
Just email me and I will direct and guide you. And if it's something that I cannot help with, I certainly have a whole village of other professionals that I can say give you some guidance as to where to go.
Mm,
Um, the there is many things that we can do long distance these days. It doesn't have to be local anymore.
mm,
Technology has advanced greatly, but
yeah.
there's a limit to maybe what we can do, but hopefully I can guide. So this is any family who's struggling with behavior, who's struggling with why doesn't my child learn to read and to write?
Mm,
That's struggling with autism, with ADHD, with
mm,
these are the bigger categories, But we also do, there's, sometimes Down syndrome kids coming in, brain injury. We do sometimes a whole group of them comes in, and then we don't see a brain injury child for 2 years again. So they sort of come and go. So the
Mhm.
major categories we're talking about are the ones that's always there.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the main piece of my work is sensory processing.
Mm.
So anytime that anybody wants guidance in the area of the central nervous system and how that plays into the diagnosis, that's probably us.
Nice. Okay, that's beautiful. So atotalapproach.com. You can find all of Maud's work there and how you can connect with her. Thank you so much. And really, I wish you so many blessings on your journey and for all those that you're helping as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening to the Kingdom Doers podcast. If you're ready to bring transformational impact to your audience at your next event or master faith-based mindset hacks for success, visit kingdomdoer.com. There, you'll also get your free guide on how to break through emotional barriers for greater impact and success in the marketplace. Again, visit kingdomdoer.com. That's kingdomdoer.com. And remember, you've got this and God's got you.